Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Summer Showcase Northern Lights, where we discuss all things the Canadian Football League. As usual, I am joined by Michael Washington, my always trusty co-host. Before we get into the content today, we're going to play a quick intro video. Shout out to our sponsors, Current and Upside. You can catch both of those links in the description, and we'll get to it. All right, we got a ton to talk about today. After a pretty packed week worth of news, so we're gonna go ahead and just jump right into it. And the big topic of this week, or at least what I noticed prior to the games yesterday and Friday, Cameron Dukes signed with Montreal, and McLeod Bethel Thompson is headed to the 6-game injury list. Obviously, as we know, Montreal had already lost David Alexander to the 6-game injury list prior to that. So, suddenly their quarterback position is looking a little bit rough. What are your thoughts on Cameron Dukes signing with Montreal?
I mean, as we saw, as far as Montreal was concerned, especially from yesterday, they need to figure this quarterback situation out quick. I mean, let's be honest, they kind of struggled a little bit yesterday. They got kind of blown out. It wasn't all on the quarterback play. I don't think James Morgan, who I think entered the game, I don't think he started the game, but I think he entered the game. I don't think that he played poorly by any means, but I don't think he played great either. I think Montreal is in one of those situations right now where this team looked like it was at the pinnacle of the top, and now they're kind of struggling to get players on the field. This is how we see it in the injury bug every year, right? Like, you take a look at what's happening in Toronto, which we'll discuss a little bit later on, and those injuries start piling up, and if you don't really have a plan in place, it definitely shows, that's for sure. But I think Cameron Dukes is a great signing as far as Montreal is concerned. He had some success. He shows athleticism. He has the arm strength and talent to be in this league. The fact that he was still a free agent baffles me, considering some of the quarterback rooms. But I think he's the best available free agent, that was out there. And I think Montreal made the correct move. It's now just getting him up to speed with their playbook in order to be able to plug and play if they don't trust James Morgan.
Completely fair, and maybe I missed it, and hopefully you did not miss it, but did Caleb Evans get hurt?
No, I think he just got pulled. He wasn't playing well.
Okay.
He was from what I gathered, it didn't seem like it was an injury. It may have been a slight tweak, but he wasn't playing great. I mean, at that point in time, I think by the time they pulled him, I think they were already down almost 3 scores. So, it wasn't pretty yesterday for them, basically. So I believe Evans was just benched at that point.
Gotcha. That's fair. All I know is when I turned on the game, Morgan was already in, and I honestly had turned it on because one of my group chats had said that Morgan was in, and I was like, okay, what is going on? I need to jump on that game live. I was going to rewatch it after the fact, but ended up joining. Then watched Morgan, play pretty well overall. Obviously had the one interception, but I thought he did had a pretty admirable performance considering the fact that he entered the game as the backup initially. So I
Evans
mean,
did get hurt. He did get hurt. And apparently he was left seen on crutches as he left the game. So as the game ended, so I guess it was a knee injury.
That's even worse.
I must have missed it. I honestly didn't think that he got hurt, but and it didn't sound like it on the thing, but clearly he must have. So
if I remember correctly, Caleb Evans has had a couple issues with his knees in the past, and honestly, that could be something to watch going forward. Hopefully, it's not a season ender, and it's just something precautionary that they're trying to be safe with, so he doesn't miss a lot more time. But that's definitely something to keep an eye on because obviously, as we just mentioned, they're getting pretty thin at quarterback. There really isn't much behind, behind Evans. They've got Morgan, and I think Dukes is it currently. So I'll have to look at their roster here in a second. But other than that, there's a couple other things that we could get to. The big one that I thought was kind of interesting is that, according to 3 Down Nation or an article they just wrote, BC Lions are going to retire the number 56 in honor of Solomon Elimimian. Okay, Elimimian. I'm sorry. That last name looks crazy to me, but he's also being added to the Wall of Fame.
I would say it would probably be Elimimian. That would be the way that I would think I would pronounce that.
Sounds better than what I said.
Elimimian. No, that's not. That's definitely not
right. That's crazy.
I love that for Solomon. I always love when players get recognized by teams that they played for and had success with, and I'm happy for him and glad that BC's recognizing him for his contributions to their history, their franchise history.
Completely agree. I mean, he spent 9 seasons there. Played in countless games. Played in a Grey Cup with BC. 2 different final or champion or conference finals. So long history with the team. Definitely deserved. So great to see it. And honestly, kind of seemingly came out of left field. This is sort of the type of thing I would have expected before the season. So to me, it was a little odd mid-season, but what are you going to do? The next big topic on the list today, I guess, is 2 players were fined for celebrations following Week 10, and I was curious. Did you see the celebration by Sean Lemon?
No, I didn't. I usually with celebrations, I don't pay attention to them as much because, everybody makes a big deal out of them because they can be fun and whatnot. But I did not see Sean Lemon's. I actually didn't see either one of them in that capacity. But unless I guess it must have been something fairly egregious. Maybe I don't know.
Well, the wording of the fine just it seemed crazy. It let me pull it up real quick just so I can read it. But here it is. Montreal defensive lineman Sean Lemon has been fined for violating the CFL Code of Conduct by bringing the league into disrepute through a celebration. And then also Montreal quarterback Caleb Evans has been fined for violating the CFL Code of Conduct by simulating the firing of a weapon during a celebration.
That one I saw as far as what it was, but I did not see Sean Lemon's. his actual celebration. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
I just
I
thought that was
probably
like a
put it up
really,
somewhere, but yeah.
really strong wording.
He was crawling on all fours. He was crawling on all fours and lifting his leg. Oh,
That's right.
sorry. I think there was a little bit of a delay there. Did not mean to interrupt you there, Sean. Sean. Called you Sean. Sam. So Sean Lemon's celebration involved crawling on all fours and lifting his leg in a manner that resembled a dog urinating.
Okay. All right.
So
Yep.
apparently a urinating dog results in fine. Yep.
That seems fair. Seems a little childish. I'll give him that. Did you want to go into the next one?
That's more of an explanation. That's more of an explanation than the a better explanation than the wording that the CFL used. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I was just like, I didn't personally see the celebration during the game. It's one of those things, you're listening to the game, doing other things at the same time, and just didn't catch it. But after the fact, the wording was just like, it just really caught my eyes when I was, going through and looking at everything, because it's like, like I said, I didn't even know what he could have possibly done, but now it makes more sense.
Yeah.
But
In other news, big news for the CFL as well. Just primarily because I think it's something that both leagues really need help with. But the CFL and the NFL have renewed their partnership to develop refs. 2 crews of seven CFL officials will take part in the NFL training camp. Practices will begin on August 13th, which has already passed us, of course, as we know, 4 days ago. But I think that's a huge partnership for the CFL. I think it's definitely something that's missing. Like the NFL got rid of their officiating program a few years back. And a lot of it was contributed to the fact that they felt with a program like that, it made it too easy for refs to be able to get paid off. I feel like it's kind of suffered a little bit. I think there's a lot of fans out there that agree. With the CFL, a lot of the officiating seems to be fairly consistent in comparison to what the NFL can be. I say fairly because there are some things that obviously we see some coaches fly off the handle with. But overall, I think that this is a good partnership as far as the officiating aspect of it is concerned. My question to you is, though, Sam, from a perspective of how different the 12-man game is and the 11-man game is.
yeah,
What do you
actually,
think that this crossover could actually do as far as the benefit of, I'm trying to find the right words for that, but you know where I'm going with it. Like,
yeah, and actually, that was one of the things that kind of surprised me a little bit. I understand that realistically, it's much like being a player. Every repetition counts. But as you mentioned, the rules are fairly different, between the two leagues. I mean, you think about the fact that in the CFL, there's the yard gap between the center and the defensive line of scrimmage, and that's a huge difference from the NFL. You can't really judge things like offsides and stuff the same that you would in the CFL. There's also various other differences. In fact, in the terms of having the 12th man that you have to pay attention to, having different referee alignments and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think it's probably a good thing overall, just based on, getting to bounce ideas off of other crews when it comes to judgment calls, and maybe just kind of seeing how other crews react to calls, or seeing how they watch or look for things, and maybe things like that. So it's not necessarily as much about the rules as it is about developing their abilities as a referee to make the proper call in the right situation. And that to me makes a lot of sense. But yeah, obviously rule wise, there's going to be those differences. So it's hard to say how much that is really helping them commit the rules to memory. But you would think with the CFL, these guys are, professional refs. They're most likely not necessarily needing to brush up on the rules per se, but more like I said, the judgment calls and how things are looked at.
I wonder if a lot of it also deals with like the reviews of plays and how things are as far as the reviews are concerned, as well as like the baseline stuff. Like we all know what holding is, pass interference, the illegal contact, all that things are basically the same as far as the CFL and the NFL are concerned. So maybe it's like you said, it's more of like the judgment calls, the handling of situations, like you're in extreme situations and stuff like that. But either way, I think it's good for both leagues because officiating has been kind of suspect, especially at that level, right? Like you're talking about the premier levels, the top two teams in the leagues in North America, really the world in professional football. I don't think there's room. Personally, I don't think there should be room for poor officiated games.
I would agree. And I mean, if that's the end goal here, is just developing the referees and making sure that they're making the right play call in the right situation, then I'm all for it. And regardless of what we're doing, I think it looks good that both leagues are trying to make the effort to make refs in general better. That's always a point of contention with fans and coaches and players. Regardless of what league you're a part of, realistically. So definitely love to see that. Moving on, Taylor Elgersma had quite the performance for the Green Bay Packers. A lot of Canadian fans have been kind of tracking what he's been doing with the Packers in camp. I guess he found out just before the game that he was going to be coming in second behind Malik Willis, who is obviously the expected quarterback too with the Packers there. He actually ended up having the best performance on the day of any Packers quarterback. He went 7 for 11 for 109 yards. He also ran one time for 4 yards. Behind him, Malik Willis was 6 of 14 for 83 yards. And Sean Clifford, his direct competition, went 1 for 4 for 11 yards. Also added 3 carries for 19 yards and a touchdown. So looking pretty good for Elgersma down there with Green Bay. Like I mentioned when he was picked up by Green Bay, I think this probably buys him at least a couple seasons in the NFL. And if he continues to perform like this, we might see him, carve out a little niche there in the NFL going forward. Does it surprise you at all to see?
I think it would be likely that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it doesn't. But I think no, you're fine. I think that I'm probably lagging a little bit here this morning, so my apologies to everybody. I think that when we take a look at the dynamic of how the NFL works, though, Sean Clifford has the edge primarily because he's already been in camp with them. So I think honestly, this might be a situation where Clifford ends up being the emergency 3, and they put why am I drawing a blank on his name? You just said his name.
Elgersma.
Why am I drawing a blank? Elgersma, yeah, on the practice squad. I think that's very likely that they'll do something similar to that to start with. But other than that, yeah, man, I'm not really surprised he's having success. A lot of these quarterbacks in the CFL can compete at the preseason level at the very least with some of these quarterbacks that come into the league. It's just the NFL likes to involve draft capital in a lot of decisions that they do, or guys that have been in camp longer than others. So Clifford already has the edge because he's been there before. So there's a good chance that he still might win that emergency 3, but he has a chance to be on the taxi squad for sure, or practice squad for sure. So
absolutely. And if nothing else, as we all know, the preseason is often auditioning for jobs elsewhere. So, if he doesn't necessarily stick with the Packers, he's certainly making a case to be on an NFL roster somewhere. And I fully anticipate, like I mentioned before, that this is going to carve him out a couple seasons in the NFL at least. If we do see him in the CFL, I thoroughly expect it to be, at least three seasons into his career. So moving on, Saskatchewan will play a 2026 preseason game in Saskatoon as an effort to kind of, bring in the Saskatoon market. What are your thoughts on this move by the CFL?
I mean, I like it. It's the first time since 1991. The University of Saskatchewan plays there for the training camp already. So the fact that there's going to be a preseason game at Griffith Stadium is great, and I think it's good for the CFL to be able to utilize some of these other stadiums and utilize some of these other areas that have the ability to host a game like this, right? Because I mean, it's great for tourists too. Like, it's good for attractions to bring in. It's good for the economy across the board, especially football, because the CFL turns out pretty decent numbers up there. So it's not like that they're not going to attract people to it. So as far as Saskatchewan is concerned, and the Rough Riders are concerned, I think this is a great move in the sense of just being able to market. Like, you and I talk a lot about on the UFL side, the marketing aspect of things, right, and how to get in there. And this is great for Saskatchewan to branch out nearby, maybe get some new fans. They can run some kind of family event there in the preseason to kind of maybe generate some new intrigue and interest into the CFL, and maybe generate some new younger fans to be able to continue the support for the team.
Absolutely. Definitely think it's a big deal. As you mentioned, marketing wise, this is huge. You bring in not necessarily another fan base, but you bring in a fan base that may not necessarily have the ability to make it to games as easily as they would like. And now you give them more of an opportunity to make it there. I think that's a positive for every team. At the end of the day, you want to loop in as many fans as you can. You want to make it as easy and accessible as possible to attend a game. And here we are, developing another way for these fans to make it to games and get to interact with these players and ultimately, develop the next generation of fandom as well, as they bring their kids and whatnot. So I think it's a big deal, and
Yeah.
preseason games have a little different feel that I think fans can really resonate with as they kind of learn the game and learn how it all works.
Yeah,
Moving
and
on.
preseason. And one
Sorry,
more
go
thing,
ahead.
and preseason is actually and preseason is really good in the sense of like making sure, because preseason games are generally a little more affordable as far as the family aspect of it is concerned. So if you host an event with it, like usually like preseason is designed, or the games are played in certain areas where there's other events happening, so they kind of correlate with one another in the cities. A lot of cities will put on events that happened in correlation with that. So Saskatoon can actually do that as a city to be able to kind of put on something that goes centered around this preseason game that should hopefully draw in more across the board too. So it's up to the Rough Riders to get out there and make sure that they're hitting up those events as well on a local level to make sure that they're actually really garnering support and excitement for the preseason game.
Absolutely, completely agree. You want to take us into the next one?
Yeah. I want to first and foremost apologize to Caleb Evans. I made the mistake of saying he played poorly. He didn't play bad. He got hurt early in the game. It wasn't impressive for me, and maybe that's primarily because of the fact that I've never been truly impressed with Caleb Evans per se. He's flashed, but he's never been a guy that I've been like I see as a franchise starter or a guy who should be a starter. So my apologies on that front. I misspoke. It was more or less my own personal. I didn't think he played very well, but apparently his numbers were better than what I thought they were, and he got hurt early in the game. So let's start with there. I want to apologize to Evans there. That leads me to James Morgan entering the game and going 20 for 33 for 211 yards, a touchdown, and interception in this game. We've seen Morgan play. What was it? Was it Pittsburgh of the USFL? I think it was.
Yes, sir.
And you know, yeah, he wasn't a guy who really flashed. I mean, it really stood out, but he flashed in moments. Very solid player. I remember him in college. I actually seen him play in college because he played in the conference that Maine was in. Um, but these numbers were fairly impressive. There were some throws that he missed out of those 13 that I think could clean things up. But I don't know how much of that was necessarily him being fully prepared, not knowing that if he was going to be in this game or not. So as a backup quarterback, it always could go one of two ways. It could be a complete disaster of of an outing, or it could end up being, friggin' Matt Flynn, and the next thing you know, you're getting a 4-year massive contract to then end up being a backup somewhere else. So it was pretty serviceable, but Montreal just got their asses kicked. They were out of this game from the start. So I don't know what your thoughts were on the Morgan performance and how much of it you caught, but to me, it was okay. I wouldn't call it great.
Yeah, that's basically exactly how I would describe it. I feel like Morgan could definitely have benefited from a little bit of help in other areas with the team. If they had gotten a defensive stop here or there, maybe it would have helped his case. But overall, I think he played pretty well coming off the bench. I mean, he entered the season, I believe, the fourth string quarterback, and now he's somehow playing the majority of the game, and we're only halfway through the season. So, as far as that goes, I think he did pretty well. I liked a lot of the things that he did in the preseason. So I think that, seeing him go out there and do, have a similar performance in a regular season game was good for him and his confidence moving forward. And also Montreal's confidence in him going forward. So Morgan's kind of a project for them. I think he's kind of a long-term he's got a long-term outlook as like a backup on the roster. So I think they want to get him more playing time as things go on. But it will definitely be interesting to see how this game alters their perception of Morgan, if it does at all, to be completely honest. I mean, it's a one-game sample size, so let's not go anointing him the starter or going and freaking out about the performance. But I definitely think that it's good for him to get these reps underneath his belt and continue his development in the CFL gameplay, which is still very new to him. Could you see
Yeah,
him?
and again, like you said, it's a very small sample size. Oh, I was just going to say, counter off that, it's a very, very small sample size. It's definitely something that I think that the coaching staff can at least look at some of the positives, right? Like, it wasn't a complete disaster. I think that there's some room for some more, downfield throws. And yes, he could have easily gotten some help with Montreal because BC ate them alive, or Montreal defensively ate them alive. But also offensively, like, I feel like that there was some things that just weren't clicking, and maybe that was just a timing issue because Morgan's not used to it. I'm sure he didn't get a ton of first team reps, knowing that they were going to go with Kayla Evans early in the process. But maybe it's enough for them to see something to go, okay, this is what the CFL's about, right? This is why they get the young guys and they hold on to them for so long, because this is the developmental part, right? So this gives Morgan now an opportunity and chance. It sucks it came at the expense of 3 injuries, but now he's there and now he has an opportunity. So if Montreal invests into him during this time period while Davis Alexander is still recovering, he should be back shortly. I think he's got 3 games left, I think. It could lead to, good things for Morgan. We'll see. He just needs that vote of confidence from the Montreal coaching staff.
Absolutely. And, like I mentioned before, just to add some context to it, BC's defense produced 3 sacks and an interception. They also held the Montreal offense to just 51 rushing yards on the day. So to go on top of that, Nathan Rourke was slinging it. So on that note, pivoting to Nathan Rourke, he totaled 413 yards on the day and 4 touchdowns against Montreal. Montreal's obviously a pretty quality opponent, although they were playing with, as mentioned before, a 4th-string quarterback. But I wanted to ask you, I mean, is BC finally turning it around, or is this just them catching lightning in the bottle at the right time because they're facing an injured opponent?
They better hope that this is them turning things around. It's been a struggle this year for them, and it's about a lot of teams this year. I feel like it feels like there's a lot of struggling teams that we didn't expect necessarily to struggle. And BC has been one of them. Like, we didn't really expect Nathan Rourke to come out and have the issues that he's been having. So for them, at least from a Nathan Rourke perspective, I'm sure that this was a huge vote of confidence. They move to 5-5. They're tied with Montreal now record-wise, which is part of the struggle bus when it comes to Montreal, one of the teams that we were talking about. But for Nathan Rourke's confidence, this game has got to really help him, and hopefully that coaching staff too. Maybe there's some life there that they can hang on to and move forward to truck towards the back half of the season and give BC a glimmer of hope to maybe be a dangerous team in the playoffs. So,
Just to correct something I said earlier, Davis Alexander has 2 games left. He's already made it through 4 games, so that
okay.
End of his 6-game stint will not come fast enough, and it actually falls on a bye week for Montreal in week 13. So by the week, he should most likely be back by week 14, which would be a much welcomed addition for the 5-5 Montreal Alouettes at this point, who are quickly losing their grip on the second spot in the East Division. Which is funny to say because the next team up is Ottawa at 3-7. But yeah, you want to go ahead and bring us into the next one?
Yeah, I got that. I can definitely do that. Saskatchewan shuts down Hamilton, allows just 9 points all game. They forced, it looks like 2 interceptions, 3 fumbles, and they have 6 sacks. I mean, obviously, you and I have discussed numerous times about Saskatchewan. We've talked about Saskatchewan from a preseason perspective being the dark horse. In my case, was the dark horse candidate to win the Grey Cup. They're just showing that they are the best team, in my opinion, in the league. This defense is it's the same thing that we saw last year with Corey Mason, his first year there. This defense is just really the staple of this team, right? Trevor Harris is showing veteran leadership. He's out there looking like the Trevor Harris 10 years ago. Like, he's playing like that guy. So you can tell they're having fun. I know winning always makes things better, especially when it comes to football, because everybody hates losing. But it really doesn't seem like this team even allows any kind of hiccup or issues to kind of stop them. If they lose a game, they go, okay, we lost, we move on. We're still going to have fun and be who we are. And I think that that's important for a team, because it gives Saskatchewan an identity. We're going to go out, smack you in the mouth, and we're going to have fun doing it. That's the Saskatchewan way. AJ Ouellette is obviously one of the better running backs in the league. And as long as this team can stay healthy, I really don't see how Saskatchewan won't be represented in the Grey Cup final, in my opinion.
They say defense wins championships, and if that's the case, Saskatchewan's got the inside track for sure. They have held opponents below 20 points in 4 games this season, and inside 10 points twice. Just unbelievable performance by them so far, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. In fact, if you look at the statistics for the season, they have allowed just 183 points in 9 games. They are one of only 2 teams in the entire league to allow less than 251 points. And so, you hear that number, and there's literally a 70-point gap between Saskatchewan and the 3rd-ranked defense. Calgary's right there with Saskatchewan with 192 points allowed. So just a couple great defensive performances by those 2 teams, and that's why we find them atop the standings currently. If the opposing team can't score, they can't win the game. So definitely not surprised to see Saskatchewan on top of the rankings. Like you said, we've been talking about it all season long. They are without a doubt right now the best team in the CFL, and it's not entirely close at the moment. Moving on, Edmonton beats Toronto. On a 179-yard performance by former Indoor Football League running back Justin Rankin, and a defense that held Toronto to just 29 rushing yards. When I asked you what topics you wanted to discuss this week, the one that you pointed out to me was the woes for Toronto. At this point, they are 2-8. They have the worst record in the league. Chad Kelly is still injured and won't be back for several more weeks. What are your thoughts on Toronto?
So we discussed, last week, Toronto's upcoming schedule. We felt like Edmonton was a winnable game. It was a winnable game. Toronto let it go. And that moving forward, they have BC, who's now hitting a hot streak, and they have Hamilton, who's played really well. So we had discussed coming into their bye week, if they had come out of those 4 games at 2-2, it would look really great. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen now. The loss to Edmonton kind of puts things in perspective. Nathan Rourke had a huge performance this past week against Montreal, carved up that defense. If you lose to Edmonton, that means your defense is having some issues too with Toronto. I know it was only 28 points, but that's still 28 points that Edmonton probably had zero business scoring on you. So Toronto's in trouble. And I'm almost wondering if it's not even going to be feasible that coming out of their bye week in week 14, I'm not even sure that they're going to turn around and go, okay, let's do this. Like the 2 games that we expected to beat was Ottawa. They lost 46-42. Edmonton 28-20. I would just shut down Chad Kelly for the rest of this year, wrap up 2025, and move into 2026, because clearly it didn't go your way. And clearly you have other issues. If you are relying on one guy, and that's in Chad Kelly, to come back to save your season, chances are your season's not going to be saved. So don't brush Chad Kelly back. Wrap it up with whatever it is. Give him the whole year off and just lick your wounds and limp into next season, because it's pretty much the ship has sailed now, because I don't see them winning these next 2 games to come out 2-2 in this situation, personally, myself. Because the 2 games that we expected them to possibly win, which was Ottawa and Edmonton, they failed miserably, and that defense gave up 46 to Ottawa, who was looking like a lethargic offensive team heading into that game. So, yeah, I think it's time for them to just probably wrap that up and just move on.
I don't think that's the worst idea in the world. Excuse me. You have a young quarterback on the roster in Tucker Horn that you opted to release Cameron Dukes for. You obviously believe in him quite a bit if you were willing to get rid of a guy who had started, over 10 games for you over the past couple seasons, and somebody who had been in the locker room for a couple years at that point. So with that being the case, I mean, why not see what you have? Like you said, the 2025 season has already gone awry. You're 2-8. What's the worst thing that can happen? You find out that he's not the guy. He's not who you thought he was, and then you go ahead and move on from him in the offseason as well, and hopefully Chad Kelly comes back healthy in 2027 or 2026 and ready to, return to his MOP performance. And I mean, honestly, like you said, you look at the next 2 games for them. They have BC next week coming off a big performance. Nathan Rourke looks like he finally has found a rhythm. And then they have Hamilton on the Labor Day weekend. So, and they're in Hamilton. So, yes, they have BC at home. That is a slight advantage. But these 2 games are not going to be give-me's by any stretch. And Hamilton, is coming off a tough loss. So maybe that game is winnable. But they also have a bye week this upcoming week. So they'll be able to prepare for Toronto for 2 weeks. So that's another wrinkle there. So,
yeah.
It's going to be a tough stretch for Toronto, but I tend to agree with your assessment there.
If they had come out of this 2-2, if they had beaten Ottawa and Edmonton, I think that it probably wouldn't be as bad, because then they would get Chad Kelly back, and at least they'd be, only a couple games out of that crossover game. But as it sits right now, they're dead last in the league. They look like they're one of the teams that's probably going to be eliminated early, especially if they lose these next 2. I can't imagine that they're going to be that close in contention enough to even garner wanting to bring Chad Kelly back. So if they go 0-4 over this stretch, which is something that I don't think you and I even came close to ever expecting, it's going to turn around and not be worth bringing Kelly back, in my opinion, because at that point in time, you're probably going to be too far out of it. Like, you're going to have to come down to the wire in week 19 and have a lot of things fall your way. And with the way the season has gone for Toronto, things have just not fell your way. So just wrap it up, move on, move to 2026. And like you said, give Tucker Horn a chance, see what you have in him, make him the starter for the rest of the year, and just lick your wounds and recoup for next year. I mean, that's just truly my honest opinion there from that perspective.
Completely agree. And, just to add a little bit more context to that, I mean, you look at some of the other teams that are ahead of them in the East. You've got Ottawa and Montreal. Both of them are at home this upcoming week. And then both of them have a bye week on the Labor Day weekend. So, they have a little bit of advantage over Toronto there too. So if they can win against Winnipeg and Edmonton respectively, and Toronto has a tough game against BC, all of a sudden they widen that gap. And at what point, do you just pack it in and start playing for 2026? So I definitely am with you there after looking a little bit closer at that situation.
Yeah, shout out to Justin Rankin though. I know you mentioned it, but 179-yard performance. You can't go unstated from a guy who played indoor football to being outdoors. And we always knew that he had the talent to play outdoors. And I'm just happy that he's finally getting the opportunity and chance to show what he's capable of. Especially outdoors in a world of football where it's so hard to make that next step up. Uh, Rankin's proven that he belongs, and I can't be even. I couldn't be more ecstatic for him and happy that he's having success in Edmonton by any means.
Completely agree. Love seeing all these guys from the IFL or leagues like it find success in the CFL. I feel like it's an easier transition than most make it sound like, and there's a couple guys that have been sprinkled throughout the league from indoor leagues. So always love to see it.
Yeah, got a question for you, Sam. And you're the local Ottawa guy. We talked a little bit about brand and identity when it came to Saskatchewan earlier. Is Ottawa's brand and identity just going to be continued to make mistake after mistake after mistake to cost you games? Is that your guys' identity in 2025? Because it really honestly feels like that at this moment in time.
Yeah, as much as I would love to tell you that it won't, currently it looks like that's exactly what's going on. It's tough to watch sometimes because we'll be in a game throughout the game, and then in key moments, when we need a big time conversion or something of the sort, we just fall flat and end up shooting ourselves in the foot and not quite coming through in the end. It's been repeatedly this season that we've lost by one possession, and this was another game that ultimately fell that way, and that's coming considering the fact that we failed in the red zone one time, ended up having to settle for a field goal, which ended up being the difference in the game, had allowed 7 penalties for 55 yards, and it just, like I said, it seems like every single time that there's a clutch moment, we just fall short. So a lot of people have been calling for Bob Dice's head, and I was resistant to that at first, but I think it's at a point where you really have to kind of wonder what the direction of this franchise is going forward.
My thing with Ottawa is the lack of discipline. I don't remember last year being this sloppy. I know that there was moments where you guys had some games where crucial moments were taken back from penalties or poor play, but it just feels like every time Ottawa does something great, it's either being called back or it's being nullified for something that happens in the next play. And it's just every game feels like that. Like you said, one loss games and one score games, and um, I don't know if I necessarily think that Bob Dice's head should be on the platter per se, but it's hard to make a case against it, right? Like I can't make a case saying he should stay. Normally I can because but I mean this is 2 years now of games that you probably should have come, you know, games you should have won. Let's be honest, and games that you didn't win. It's been like that for 2 seasons now, especially with that defense on paper. On paper last year we talked about how Ottawa looked like they had one of the best defensive teams in football, and then this year we talked about defense being their strength, and it just feels like whether it's holding calls in the secondary or offsides or whatever you want to say for any type of defensive penalty, it feels like Ottawa has gone through the exhausted the rule book to just nullify big plays and big games, basically.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. They've had 6 games decided by one score this season, including 2 of their 3 wins, and 4 losses. So I mean, it's tough. It's tough to watch, and it's one of those things where in the back of my mind, I have to start wondering if we look to make a change and we don't see, Rick Campbell take over as the interim coach the rest of the way through the season. I mean, obviously he was very successful the last time he was in Ottawa. He was the coach that led us to the playoffs and the Grey Cup and everything that has really been positive in Ottawa over the last, half a decade here. So, I mean, if that's the case, it makes some sense. He's currently the special teams coach, so maybe that's the move. As much as I hate to say it, I'm a big Bob Dice fan. I like the energy he brings to the team. I liked how he kind of sparked the team when he took over as the interim for Paul LaPolice, and it just unfortunately has not panned out. I know we made it to the playoffs last season, but lost early on, and it just we can't keep uh, being the bottom feeder. There has to be progress toward something for the team, and right now I don't see it. I just see us continuously taking a step backward and shooting ourselves in the foot in key moments, which in my mind points right back to coaching every single time. So
Yep.
definitely a big concern there for me.
Discipline. Discipline always starts with coaching, in my opinion. And players are disciplined enough to keep their bodies in shape, but when it comes to game, they always want to try to find an edge, and they always try to, stretch it, push those buttons as far as they can. How far can we take it? And it really comes down to discipline on that part to stop players from doing that, right? Like they're disciplined in one thing, but they need to be reminded of the discipline that happens in the other thing. And I think that's always a coaching thing. So
Definitely fair. One more topic that I wanted to bring up was to discuss some of these attendance numbers. It's been a couple weeks since we really discussed it, but coming out of week 9, we saw everything trending up. The averages were up. 3 of the 4 games ended up seeing an increase in attendance. And then you saw a BC or a sellout in Hamilton in week 10, which helped the attendance numbers.
yeah, and if you take a look at everything here, like Toronto has always been hovering right around 13K. I'm not sure how they will go about getting those numbers up, but I feel like they kind of fluctuate between 13 and 18. I don't think they really hit 20 all that often. I mean, I don't know if you know that off the top of your head or not, but it doesn't really feel like that they are.
No, they've definitely had a fairly rough go of it this season. They seem to more or less have the lowest attendance in the league, pretty typically. The average for them has been fairly low throughout the season, but that was just something that I wanted to kind of check back in on. It's
Yeah, I think the thing with Toronto is to turn around and we talk about the team, and I'm sure that it's more of a direct result of the product that's happening on the field. Not having Chad Kelly under center, who's like the face of the team, like probably played a big factor to a lot of the fans not necessarily showing up for that team. But Toronto reminds me a lot of Los Angeles, right? Like it's a good mix of like random things. So a lot of people go to Toronto. It's a huge market as far as television is concerned. But as far as like attendance to things, it's usually like a mixed pot of various teams fans. It's like kind of like Vegas, right? Like there's a lot of Vegas, a lot of people visit that area. So yeah, I mean, maybe they can get those numbers up if Chad Kelly returns, and maybe that's what they salvage at the end of the year to get Kelly out there if they decide that they don't want to, you know, I guess if they want to try to bring him back for some reason in 2025. But it might be directly tied to the attendance. Who knows? So Toronto, get your weight up.
That's not a bad point at all. I mean, if you look at it that way, it's probably that the attendance is definitely taking a hit because they're coming out to see Nick Arbuckle play. He threw for 382 yards this past weekend, but he also only threw 1 touchdown and couldn't win a game, and his offense only put up 18 points. So I mean, that's That's a tough situation. So I definitely understand fans not necessarily wanting to attend those games. And I could also see, if Chad Kelly came back, that there would be at least, an immediate spike in attendance. And maybe it's not a dramatic, but, 1,000 or two fans wouldn't surprise me at all if we saw that, especially if they're still somehow in playoff contention at that point. If Ottawa and Montreal lose their next couple games, and Toronto somehow strings together a win or two before Kelly comes back, suddenly I could see attendance start really trending in the right direction there. But yeah, it's definitely a question. But like you said, Toronto's also got a lot going on. They've got a basketball team, they've got a hockey team, and they've got the Argonauts. So I mean, they're not devoid of other things to do as well. So that's something to figure in as well. So it's just one of those things. I think Toronto's always going to have some relative attendance struggles when it comes to that.
Yeah, and they have the professional women's hockey league team, and they're going to be getting a WNBA team. So, I mean, they definitely are going to have a large mix of. And they got the two soccer teams up there as well. Let's not forget about them either. So they got the Northern Super League women's team, and they have the Canadian Premier League team too. So there's not a shortage of things to do in Toronto by any means. So maybe American football just kind of falls a little bit by the wayside when you don't have your franchise guy out there. So
I would think so. It makes sense. If I had a choice of all those different sports to go watch, and I would venture a guess some of those are cheaper than the CFL. And my team's not very good in the CFL. I'm probably gonna opt to go to these other events. So especially if I have a family, switch it up, get a little variation, get them exposed to a bunch of different sports and a bunch of different teams, and kind of support all your different teams in the area. So it makes sense. I can't fault fans for it, but at the same time, I'm sure Toronto and the Argonauts would love to see those numbers climb the rest of the season.
I'm sure they would.
Any extra thoughts that we need to get out here? I mean, I think we kind of rolled through that pretty efficiently.
No, I don't have anything else. I mean, it's just been like I said to you off air. Just when you think you know something, 2025 basically says you don't know anything. Toronto's the worst team in the league. Montreal just got lambasted by BC, even if they were on their third or fourth quarterback, but not something you expected. BC struggled at the beginning of the year. Didn't expect that with Nathan Rourke back. So Hamilton, outside of getting blasted by Saskatchewan, is like one of the better teams in the league, which none of us expected. I don't think anybody outside of maybe Bo Levi, Mitchell, and Hamilton expected it, to be honest with you. So, 2025 has been a wonky season, but it's been fun. It's been fun, and we're winding down here. We're getting down towards the nitty-gritty here to make a push for the playoff run as well. So,
agreed. I did want to ask you, how are you doing the year-long football pick'em?
So I apparently was a bonehead and forgot to pick not this last week, but the week before. So I lost that game because there was no submission for picks. I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose this week. I picked Toronto thinking that they might bounce back against Edmonton. It looks like the over-under, because you bet on the over-under as well. It looks like I missed on 2 out of the 4, and my opponent picked Edmonton and hit on 3 out of the 4 of the over-unders, I believe. So I'm pretty sure that I'm going to lose this week, but I'm still on top of my division. I had a nice little buffer, but that buffer is obviously getting a little bit closer, now. So still winning that division as far as that's concerned. And my ELF championship game is this weekend, and I don't know how it's going so far for me, but I think it's going okay so far from what I said. So
There you go. There you go. Check out yearlongfootball.com. They have a pick'em contest for literally every form of football on the planet. Indoor football, CFL, LFA, ELF, NFL, college. I'm pretty
X
sure they
League.
got
I joined the X League this year
football.
too.
The
I
X
joined the
League.
X League this year.
They've got everything on there. Honestly, it's one of the better things that we've done was partner with Year Long Football. It's been a lot of fun participating in their pick'em contests, and They also have been a great partner. If you go to the website, you'll see Shady Sports Network right there on their homepage. So definitely love to give them a shout out. And honestly, I need to be better about doing that in the future because we really have not talked too much about the Pick'em contest, unfortunately. So real quick before we get out of here, I'm going to play our sponsor commercials, and then we're just going to wrap this bad boy up. And I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit the like button, comment. And if you have not done so already, jump over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. We are closing in on 2,600 subscribers, gaining them super fast, but we need your help to continue growing this thing. If we could hit 4,000 subscribers before the end of NFL season, that would be stupendous. And I think we can do it with your help. So jump over, hit the subscribe button, and also go check out the Shady Sports Network merchandise on brandingblanks.com. With that being said, we'll catch you guys next Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern for the next episode of Summer Showcase Northern Lights.
Cool McCain.
You thought you wanted Gunther against Chad Gable, but you didn't. And I'm going to tell you why. Chad Gable would take everything that Gunther's done and bury it.
The Playmaker.
It was on site. AJ Styles walked out there seeing LA like, oh, okay, then LA Knight hopped out the car, let's go.
Break down everything in TNA, AEW, and all of the WWE programming. Join these two kings, monarchs of wrestling, live every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central on the Play Caller Sports Talk YouTube channel.
This is Current. It's the card my parents used to pay me for mowing the lawn, running errands, and doing well in school. This is the card I used when we got the idea to make our own clothes. And we spread the word, drove downtown, and sold everything we made. This is the card I use to do the things that really matter. This is Current. Visit current.com and download the app for free today.
I'm just being myself, cool as can be. When I'm being myself, you wish you were me. It's so easy. Get out your own way.